All right, let's get right into it. We all think we know what good customer service is, right? But what if I told you that some of the most successful companies out there are playing a totally different game? They've unlocked a strategy that goes way, way beyond just being good. They're shooting for something that feels, well, almost unreasonable. And honestly, it's their ultimate secret weapon. So, to really understand what this looks like, let's start with a question. Just imagine this for a second. You're a parent, you just got home from a family vacation, and your kid realizes their absolute favorite stuffed animal, their best buddy in the whole world, is gone, left behind at the hotel. I mean, that's pure panic mode, right? Well, this isn't a hypothetical. This exact thing happened to the Hearn family. After a great trip staying at the Ritz-Carlton, they got home, and boom, their son's beloved stuffed giraffe, Joshie, was nowhere to be found. And as you can guess, the little guy was absolutely heartbroken. So the dad, Chris Hearn, thinking on his feet, comes up with this little white lie to calm his son down. He says, "Hey, don't worry, Joshie is just taking an extra long vacation at the hotel. He's having a good time." And, for the moment, it actually worked. Later that night, the phone rings. It's the hotel. And guess what? They found Joshie. He's safe. So the dad, totally relieved, explains the whole story he spun for his son. And then he makes this simple, kind of weird request. He asks, "Hey, could you do me a huge favor? Could you just take one picture of Joshie hanging out by the pool to help me sell this extra vacation story?" And this is where the story goes from a nice little moment to something absolutely legendary. A few days later, a package shows up. Inside is Joshie, safe and sound, but also a binder. The Ritz-Carlton team didn't just take one photo. No, they created an entire photo album of Joshie's extended vacation. There he is getting a massage at the spa, sunbathing by the pool. He even helped out the loss prevention team. They took a tiny request and turned it into an unforgettable, magical moment. That story is so much more than just a heartwarming anecdote. It's a perfect case study in a really powerful business philosophy. So let's unpack the actual strategy behind Joshie the giraffe's amazing extra vacation. The guy who really gave this idea a name is the famous restaurateur Will Guidara. He calls it unreasonable hospitality. And the key here is that it's not about just spending a ton of money. It's about giving people so much more than they could ever expect through these really personal, emotional, and totally unexpected experiences that just make them feel seen, like truly seen. You can kind of think of customer service as being on a spectrum. On one end, you've got standard service. That's just meeting the basic needs, giving you the thing you paid for. Then you have exceptional service. This is about exceeding expectations, like when Zappos surprises you with a free upgrade to overnight shipping. But unreasonable service, that's on a whole other planet. The focus here is creating a genuine emotional connection. It's about turning a simple transaction into a lasting memory, just like what the Ritz-Carlton did for that family. And here's the really important part. This isn't just about being nice for the sake of being nice. There is a rock-solid business case for this stuff. I mean, think about it. All the research shows it can be up to 20 times, 20, more expensive to get a new customer than it is to just keep the ones you already have. So these unreasonable acts, they have a very, very reasonable return on investment by creating customers who are loyal for life. So how do companies pull this off time and time again? It's not just random acts of kindness. It actually comes down to 3 core principles. These are the pillars that create a culture where this kind of magic can happen consistently. Okay, principle number 1 is huge. You have to empower your people to say yes. This means giving your frontline team the trust, the freedom, and the autonomy to solve problems and create these amazing moments on their own. The Ritz-Carlton doesn't have a rule in a handbook for lost giraffes. What they have is a culture that empowers every single employee to make a guest stay, no questions asked, no manager approval needed. You want to see a wild example of this? Look at Zappos. They had a customer support call that lasted a record-breaking 10 hours and 43 minutes. The actual problem was solved in, the first few minutes. The rest of it was just 2 people connecting on a human level. And the customer's quote says it all. For Zappos, it wasn't about getting the person off the phone quickly. It was about forging a real connection. That's empowerment. The second pillar is this really simple but profound idea. You can't deliver world-class hospitality to your customers if you don't practice it with your own team first. A culture of care always starts from the inside and works its way out. And you can see this in action everywhere. Think about public supermarkets, where their employee-owned model leads to genuinely happy employees and, in turn, famously happy customers. Or look at the hiring philosophy of a legendary restaurateur like Danny Meyer. He talks about a 51% hospitality quotient, meaning he hires for emotional skills like empathy and kindness first because you can teach the technical stuff later. It's about treating your team with the same care you want them to show your customers. And that brings us to the third principle: relentlessly pursue personalization. Because real hospitality isn't about a one-size-fits-all script. It's personal. It's about noticing the little things, the tiny details about an individual, and then acting on them. This story from Starbucks is just a perfect small-scale example. A barista mishears a customer's name and writes Wayne. But instead of just apologizing for the mistake, he leans into it. The next time the customer comes in, he writes Bruce Wayne on the cup. And on the final visit, he writes Batman. This tiny gesture cost absolutely nothing, but it turned a simple mistake into a fun, personal, and totally memorable interaction. It made that customer feel special. Okay, I know what you're probably thinking right now. This all sounds wonderful, but how on earth does a business afford to do all this? That is the million-dollar question, and this is where Will Guidara's 95-5 mindset comes in. It's a brilliant, systematic way to make all this generosity actually work on a budget. The idea is actually pretty simple, but it's so powerful. You apply just ruthless, maniacal discipline to 95% of your budget. You become incredibly efficient in all the areas that customers don't see or feel. By saving money there, you create a surplus. And that surplus frees up the other 5% of your budget to be used for one thing and one thing only: funding those amazing wow moments. And that 5% fund, that's where the magic is paid for. It's for things like gifting a beautiful set of Tiffany champagne flutes to a couple who just got engaged at your restaurant, or sending a staff member out to buy a classic New York hot dog for a tourist who just casually mentioned they were craving one. It could even be something as simple as feeding the parking meters for all of your guests. See, the discipline on the 95% is what makes the magic of the 5% possible. So here's the big takeaway from all of this. This mindset isn't just for five-star hotels or fancy restaurants. Not at all. These principles can be used anywhere, by anyone in any business to create their own powerful, unforgettable stories. In fact, researchers Chip and Dan Heath have a name for what we're talking about. They call them defining moments. A short, powerful experience that is both unforgettable and deeply meaningful. These are the moments that build real loyalty because they forge a genuine, powerful, positive connection with another human being. Which really brings it all back to a final, simple question. The story of Joshie the giraffe happened because one person, and then a whole team, saw a chance to turn a small problem into a defining moment. So the question for you, for all of us, is this: what unreasonable moment, what defining moment will you choose to create?